Hey,
it's cool.
we're going to get started, man. Randy, the career you've had is unlike no other. In my research, there's a story that while you were in the Army, your application ended up in the Greco-Roman tryouts instead of the freestyle wrestling tryouts. And even though you had no experience in Greco-Roman, you ended up making the team anyway. Is that true?
Yeah, that's actually true. My first duty station in the Army at 19 years old was West Germany. And showing my age, I said West Germany.
Back a long time ago.
Yeah, I thought wrestling was over for me. I was a one-time state champ out of high school in Washington, outside of Seattle, and didn't really get a lot of love from the college coaches, scholarship offers or anything like that. I had a family on the way, so I ended up joining the service to support that family. Little did I know at that time, in the peak of the Cold War, there were 5 million soldiers stationed in Central Europe. They had huge sports programs, and one of them was wrestling. So I ended up back on a wrestling mat, ended up winning a fifth corps championship. That's where, I signed up for the freestyle, and they accidentally put me on the Greco bracket as well. Started calling my name when I just finished a freestyle match, and I'm like, the heck? I just got off the mat. And they said, well, you're on the Greco bracket. Are you going to wrestle or not? And I'm like, well, okay. I ended up winning the tournament, getting a shot at trying out for the All-Army wrestling team. And, the rest is history. I ended up making the Army team, winning a couple of inter-service championships. The inter-service wrestling championship in Greco-Roman wrestling is a qualifier for the Olympics, for the Olympic trial process. And so I ended up qualifying for the trials in Greco. And was an alternate on the '88 Olympic team as a soldier. Now all these college coaches are like, who the hell is this kid? Where did he come from? And the phone started ringing, which ultimately led me to Oklahoma State. And then that's, honestly, where we crossed paths. You were at Clarion. I was at Oklahoma State. You were a heavyweight. I was a 190 pounder. We were on the East-West All-Star team together and a few other of those tournaments and endeavors where we crossed paths. And
yes, we did.
The good old days.
Never wrestled though.
No,
I want to explain to everybody, if you're not a wrestler, you don't know how difficult it is to adapt from freestyle to Greco-Roman and to actually make the team. Did that change your mind from going freestyle to going Greco-Roman full time after college?
Well, there was much more of an emphasis on Greco in the services.
Okay.
Because most of us got out of high school and went right into the service. We didn't do the collegiate thing, at least not yet. And so we didn't get that high level coaching in freestyle, hadn't wrestled at the high level in college wrestling either. And it was easier for us to focus on Greco because not a lot of guys in the US like Greco. Right. And that's the truth. And so you see a lot of our top guys in Greco come out of one service or another. The Marine Corps had a very, very strong team for a long time. You probably may have wrestled Greg Gibson from the Marine Corps team.
Yes, they did. The NCAA.
Yeah. So the emphasis for our service members a lot of times, not that they're not good at freestyle, they are, but they tend to focus and flourish in the Greco world.
They have a lot more success in Greco. I noticed that when I was wrestling, that most of the Army guys were Greco-Roman.
Yeah, it's all about emphasis, mindset. The coaches, at the end of the day, they want results. They want guys to place in the rankings and be, national champions. And it was a little bit easier path for those guys in the service that hadn't been to college and hadn't had a high level of freestyle and collegiate coaching to focus on Greco and get there.
Right.
Randy, you were a 4-time All-American at Oklahoma State and runner-up for the NCAA title to Mark Kerr, another MMA name, at 190 pounds. Do you think your experience gave you an advantage at the collegiate level?
I think rolling into Oklahoma State at 25 years old, I was very focused. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Unlike a lot of 18, 19-year-old kids coming out of high school that roll into college, they want to party, they want to carry on. They there are a lot of distractions, let's just put it that way. And I didn't have any of those distractions. I was very focused. I had a family, I had 2 kids when I rolled into Oklahoma State. And that eliminated a lot of the extraneous stuff that sometimes trips up, younger kids and keeps them from achieving, what their goals were and what they set out to do. So I definitely felt like that was an advantage for me. I was a late bloomer all the way up the line, and that was no exception. I think the 6 years I spent in the Army allowed me to mature, really kind of figure out who I was. I think on the Army wrestling team, I developed the confidence that I could compete on that international stage at a much higher level than I believed when I came out of high school as a one-time state champ. So I think, it worked out the way it was supposed to work out. I did it all backwards, but it seemed to turn out just fine.
Well, I do want to tell Conrad, you know how difficult it is to go from Greco-Roman to collegiate wrestling. That is a big adaptation. You really have to adapt. It's completely different. It's more like freestyle than it is Greco-Roman, but the scoring's different. Everything is so different. So I don't think you had much of an advantage going, to the Army first before you came to college. I think that the odds were probably stacked against you because you didn't wrestle collegiate wrestling up until then.
Yeah, I think there's some truth in that for sure. I think the biggest advantage I had was maturity and mindset. I'd already competed in an Olympic trial, even though I'd never been to college and wrestled at the higher level in folk style and college style. So I think I had a confidence and a belief in myself after making, being an alternate on that 88 team to make the adjustments. I also had great partners and great coaches at Oklahoma State. Bruce Burnett was an amazing guy.
Not the best.
First week of practice, he handed me a jump rope. He said, "Man, you wrestle like your feet are in cement." And I'm sure that was like Greco. He said, "You need to skip this rope at the end of practice every single day." And so I started getting that footwork and getting a little lighter on my feet, then planting them in the cement to, say, "Come on." I had to learn, and I still made a living getting that 2-on-1 or getting that underhook in collegiate style, which came directly from my Greco experience. But I was able to make it work and make the adaptations I needed to make to be successful at the college level.
Well, speaking of college, did you know I was almost your college teammate?
Oh, really?
Yes. Oklahoma State offered me a full scholarship at heavyweight before they offered Jay Rogers. Jay ended up going there. And every once in a while, I think about what happened to him if that would have happened to me if I would have went. You want to tell a story real quickly about Jay?
What a tragic story. He was a blue chip kid out of Washington State, Battleground. I believe he wrestled at Battleground High School in the southern part of Washington State. Won the junior nationals, was literally on fire coming out of high school. Got the offer to go to Oklahoma State, redshirted his freshman year. They were out at Tumbleweeds, which is a big country and western bar. They were coming out after the bar was closing, and he got hit by a car in the parking lot, walking to his vehicle. Broke both of his legs pretty severely. And frankly, by the time I was, I think it was my junior year, he had kind of gotten himself back up on the mat, training on a regular basis and gotten himself back in wrestling shape. But that was a long time and a pretty tragic accident. He just wasn't the same guy. If I had a regret in college, I ended up having to wrestle him off my junior year in the orange and black duels for the spot at 190. I got a 2-on-1 and I foot swept him right to his back and had him on his back. And Coach Chesbro was whistling. And of course, with my headgear on and the crowd roaring, I didn't know he was whistling at me. He was kind of trying to get my attention to let him off his back and not pin him, because it would have been disheartening for a guy who had really had a pretty rough road. Yeah. I didn't hear any of that. I ended up, it's for the spot on the team. So you do what you do. And I pinned him. And
Randy,
afterwards, I kind of wish I'd have heard Coach's whistle and been paying attention a little more to what was going on there.
I think anybody would regret that. Sorry to hear that, Randy.
Yeah. Well, Jay was a great guy. I mean, he was a great workout partner. He really was very diligent in getting himself back healthy, back out on that mat and able to lace up those shoes. So, I would have never set out to kind of steal that away from him in that moment. I certainly wasn't going to let him beat me, but I didn't really need to pin him and kind of add pour salt on the wound there.
A little bit, yes.